Michigan Senate race forum takes place. SAVE Act changes identification standards for voting. A tragedy hits a Canadian school. All this and more on this episode of Maizewire. I'm Ishan Desai. On the morning of February 11th, the three Democratic primary Michigan Senate candidates participated in a forum hosted by the United Auto Workers Union. This race takes place as Senator Gary Peters is finishing his term and retiring. The forum hosted Abdul Al-Sayed, Mallory McMarrow, and Haley Stevens. Republican runner Mike Rogers was also invited but did not make an appearance. The candidates covered topics such as campaign corporate donations, healthcare, stock buybacks, the environment, and more. Al-Sayed has positioned himself as the most progressive candidate in the race, aligning himself with Senator Bernie Sanders and pioneering policies such as Medicare for All. Stevens is often considered the most moderate in terms of policy in the race, boasting her support from politicians such as Nancy Pelosi. McMarrow positioned herself as the middle ground of the candidates, gaining the support of Senator Chris Murphy. One of the most contested issues of the forum was corporate donations in campaigns. McMarrow stated that she no longer accepts corporate donations, while El-Sayed stood firm that he has never accepted corporate donations. Stevens did not give a yes or no, but emphasized that she does not own stocks. This race continues to be a close competitive race as the three candidates compete for the primary win. It is a long-standing tradition that each winter, the president hosts a bipartisan black tie dinner for cabinet members, other officials, and spouses, following a bipartisan meeting sanctioned by the National Governors Association. After President Donald Trump failed to invite Democratic governors, the annual Governors Association announced that the meeting would not be sanctioned by them and it was removed from the official NGA program. President Donald Trump stated that he still planned to hold a separate bipartisan dinner despite having a partisan meeting. The meeting's uninvited governors were Jared Polis, the governor of Colorado, and Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, and vice chair of National Governors Association. Following the incident, 18 governors announced that they will be boycotting certain White House events. Over the last year, numerous members of the NGA have threatened to leave the organization over President Trump's actions. However, former governor of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt, wrote a letter stating the solution is not to respond in kind, but to rise above and remain focused on our shared duty to the people that we serve. On Wednesday, the 11th, the Republican-controlled House voted to pass the Save America Act. This legislation would strip federal election laws in all 50 states by requiring new voter ID and proof of citizenship requirements. President Trump is pushing Congress to enact this election bill, but is still facing a difficult path in the Senate. The vote was passed 218 to 213, with Republicans unanimously voting in favor and all but one Democrat voting against it. For someone to be able to register to vote, the 32-page legislation would require states to obtain proof of citizenship documentation, such as an American passport or birth certificate. This legislation was also added by Trump, requiring voters to show photo identification when voting in person and sending a copy of an eligible ID when requesting and casting an absentee ballot. The bill is now being brought to the Senate. Some of the Senate Republicans even revealed that they are skeptical or outright opposed to the new legislation. Senator Susan Collins believed that the bill to be problematic, and others doubt that its ability to break filibuster, as Democrats firmly oppose it. On Tuesday, February 10th, there was a school shooting in British Columbia, Canada. 6 victims were students of Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, and 2 other victims were the suspects' relatives found at the home. Countless other students and teachers are in the hospital. Mass shootings are very uncommon in Canada as they have much stricter gun laws than in the U.S. This makes this Canada's deadliest shooting in decades. Thursday, February 12th is declared a day of mourning and many legislative sessions have been postponed. The police have identified the suspect as 18-year-old Jessie Van Rootseller. She was a resident of the town in which the shooting occurred and reportedly dropped out of the school 4 years ago. Authorities found her dead in the school with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Tensions between the United States and Canada rise as President Trump threatens to halt the opening of the Gordie Howe International Bridge between Detroit and Ontario. This pathway would function as an economic catalyst between the two countries for both trade and transportation. Commanding that Canada fulfills a list of demands that have no correlation to the connecting passageway within ongoing trade war, the talks of sanctions and even making Canada the 51st state arise. Completely funded by the Canadian government, Trump requests ownership of at least half. A sense of being owed fuels this conflict on behalf of President Trump. Although these statements could seemingly be cast aside, President Trump may have the power to amend a permit for the project. That concludes this episode of Maizewire. I'm Ishan Desai. We'll see you next week on Wolf TV Maizewire. And as always, follow us on Instagram at Wolf TV Umish for more. Thank you for tuning in.